So today I'm doing my February month-end wrap-up. All the books that I read the last 2 weeks of February up next. Well, hello friends, my name is Roger and welcome to my channel, Roger's Reads. Today I'm doing my month-end wrap-up, all the books that I read the second half of February. I actually ended up reading 13 books this entire month, so the second half will cover the last 6 that I read. Now, given that I'm trying to review almost every book I read, I'm going to make a conscious effort to trim down the length of these wrap-up videos. Yeah, I know, good luck with that, Roger. But no, really, I'm going to try to be more succinct in my wrap-ups and not waffle on and on too much as I am prone to do. I figured that if you'd like to learn more about any of the books that I discuss, you could also always view a full-on review of it on this channel or elsewhere. So as I mentioned, I ended up reading 13 books total during February, though this wrap-up only covers the past 6 of them, and I did the previous 7 during my mid-month wrap-up, and I'll put a tag to that above. So on to my list of books here in February. Ooh, there we go, got it turned. Okay, so the first book that I read is entitled Jack of Hearts and Other Parts. And this is written by L.C. Rosen. So this story follows 17-year-old Jack Rothman, an out and proud high school boy who wears makeup, who loves to party, and he loves boys. He's also rather promiscuous, and his sex life is the endless topic of conversation around school, with many embellishing his exploits so that they are of almost legendary proportions. So Jack begins receiving anonymous notes at his locker, which start out kind of innocent, notes like, "I think you're cute," and to that effect. But then they take a dark turn for the stalkerish. Jack's so-called secret admirer seems to know everything about Jack, who he's sleeping with, who his mother is dating, who's coming and going from Jack's house. So eventually the stalker threatens the safety of Jack's loved ones, his family and friends. So now Jack and his friends, Ben and Jenna, have to unmask the stalker before someone seriously gets hurt or worse. Now, as a warning, this book talks very, very openly about sex. In his sex advice column, for instance, Jack's answers are quite graphic with all the naughty bits left in, so there's no sugarcoating here. So if you don't like to read about Nookie in your young adult novels, then you'll probably want to pass on this one. It's definitely not for the prudish. I found it actually quite refreshing how Jack talked about sex candidly and with humor, never denigrating himself nor taking himself too seriously in the process. So though the sex discussions tend toward the graphic, Jack's advice always came with a positive message. Be proud of who you are, ask for what you want, say no if you ever feel that things are heading into a territory with which you're not comfortable, and never be ashamed of what you enjoy. What you do with your body is up to you. So all in all, Jack of Hearts is an incredible and unashamedly sex-positive read that deals with a plethora of important themes such as stereotyping, slut-shaming, queer-shaming, victim-blaming, the fetishization of queer relationships, there's friendship, family, and more. And it was all told in a style of an excellent sense of humor. So yeah, so that's Jack of Hearts and Other Parts. Which was, I don't know if I mentioned it, which was the name of Jack's column, by the way. So the next book that I read in the second half of February was On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. So this is Angie Thomas, who's the author of The Hate You Give. This is her latest book. And this is set near the neighborhood of Garden Heights, that same neighborhood in which The Hate You Give took place. And this follows 16-year-old Brianna Jackson, whose dream it is to become a rapper. So we learn right from the get-go that her father, also a rapper, was murdered just as he started to hit it big. So now Bree is having a hard time of it at school. There are now security guards at Bree's school who tend to single out Bree and other Black and Latino students, subjecting them to verbal abuse and constant, unprovoked backpack searches. In one such incident, the two white aggressive security guards throw Bree to the ground and handcuff her, unjustly accusing her of selling drugs, though she did nothing to warrant such a suspicion. But yet, she's expelled from school for 3 days. So naturally, Bree is outraged because of the event, and so she records a track available for streaming entitled On the Come Up, a song in which she expresses her immense frustration and anger. So the song instantly goes viral. But the kicker is that its lyrics are taken out of context and used against her, used to villainize her. And before you know it, violence erupts and surrounds her controversial song. So all in all, I absolutely love this book. It was a powerful story about fighting for your dreams even when the odds seem stacked against you, and asks what we're truly willing to sacrifice to achieve those dreams. So I did a full-on review of this book and put a little link to it above so you can check it out further if you like. But yeah, On the Come Up, excellent read. So the next book that I read, the second half of February, was entitled Sometimes I Lie. Try to get that so it's not too glaring. Sometimes I Lie, written by Alice Feeney. And this was actually a book that we read for my in-person book club. So the book starts out by introducing us to our main character. And I just want to read this opening for you because it gives you a feel of the book. Here we go. My name is Amber Reynolds. There are 3 things that you should know about me. I am in a coma. My husband doesn't love me anymore. Sometimes I lie. So naturally, this opening hooked me right from the get-go. So Amber wakes up in the hospital following a coma, except she's not really awake. She can't move, she can't speak, and she can't open her eyes. But we are inside of her head as she comes to the realization of where she is and that she must be somehow still in her coma. Now she can hear all of the people who come to visit her and the conversations that take place in her room. She doesn't yet remember what happened to her, though for some reason she believes her husband is responsible. Now what's fun is that the narrative jumps between the now in the hospital room where Amber attempts to uncover what happened, and then which are flashbacks of Amber's life leading up to what happened, and then third there are the childhood diaries from decades ago, all of which tie into Amber's current predicament. Sounds off the wall, doesn't it? But actually it works quite nicely in the story. So now, given that her time is spent dreaming and semi-awake-ish, and not to forget that she's high on drugs, she's having kind of a hard time separating dreams from reality. Now, given right off the bat, Amber states, "Sometimes I lie," we can assume probably pretty safely that she's an unreliable narrator, and indeed she is. And this book it had me question everything and everyone all along the way, trying to determine where the illusion ends and where the truth begins. So as the story unfolded, I tried wrapping my brain around the mind-blowing twists that came one after another, and was amazed at this thrilling ride chock full of toxic people with sociopathic tendencies. But all in all, a book with a super immersive atmosphere bordering on the claustrophobic, with fantastic characterization and a gripping, compelling plot that keeps you guessing from the first pages to the last. So I really enjoyed this book, and I do want to read more by Alice Feeney. She seems like an author that I'd like to follow. So the next book on my list is Dread Nation by Justina, Ireland. So I don't have a copy of this because I listened to this actually in audiobook. So in this alternate history, the story takes place in the midst of the Civil War, when all of a sudden the dead rise from the battlefields and begin eating their comrades. So thus, in one day, the war between the states was transformed into the War Against the Shamblers, which, by the way, is the name given to the Walking Dead, the zombies in this story. So the book is told through the perspective of Jane McKean, a student at Miss Preston's School of Combat and Etiquette for Negro Girls, who is trained to kill shamblers and protect society. So Jane is in training to become an attendant who then protects her assigned family from the Walking Dead. So one day, Jane's life is completely changed when she's whisked away involuntarily from the school and finds herself swept up in a conspiracy, one that finds her in a desperate fight for her life against ruthless and quite powerful enemies. So I really love this book with its badass and sassy heroine taking on a world plagued by zombies. So though the topic of the book is serious, this book is also laugh out loud funny in many places, mostly due to Jane's outrageous antics and biting commentary. So yeah, this is definitely a 5-star read for me. I actually recorded a review of this book, but I haven't uploaded it to the channel yet. So hopefully I'll get to that this week. But yeah, you'll be able to see a full-on review of Dread Nation. Okay, so the next book on my list is The Gilded Wolf by Roshani Chokski. Okay, so this probably will not be a very popular opinion, but I ended up DNFing this book halfway through at about, 100, I still have my bookmark even in it, 184 pages. You know, I just couldn't bring myself to go any further. And I know that this is really a hyped book and a lot of people absolutely loved it. But I don't know why, it just didn't work for me. I don't know, maybe I wasn't in the right headspace. I didn't think that the magic system was really explained at all, so I really couldn't picture in my head what was going on with this foraging. Likewise, there was no description of the characters that I could recall or that I noticed, so I couldn't imagine them very well either. And I also thought the prose was overly dense and kind of a struggle to get through, actually. So, you know, I read every day without exception at a designated time. I have my reading time every day that's set aside for just that. Well, I actually skipped a day of reading while I was reading this because I just didn't want to sit down for an hour and slog through this prose. So that was my indication that it was time to bail on this book. So I did. So done. I know a lot of people love this book, so I'm going to have to conclude that this book was just not for me, or that I wasn't in the right headspace for it. I thought, well, maybe I'm just not a heist book person, because I recall I did not like Six of Crows, but the reason I didn't like Six of Crows was because of the stupid cliffhanger at the end, so I did enjoy the book until that. So, I don't know. The Gilded Wolves just didn't work for me. And so the sixth book that I read the second half of February was Once Upon a River. This is written by Diane Setterfield. So this book is part historical fiction, part fantasy, part magical realism with a mystery to solve. So the story revolves around the Swan, an ancient inn along the Thames where lots of storytelling takes place. So, on the night of the winter solstice, someone is in the process of telling a story when all of a sudden the door opens to a stranger who appears to be quite wounded. In his arms is the lifeless body of a little girl, though at first everyone in the bar thought that she was a doll or a puppet. So they put the man, now unconscious, down on a table, but still alive. The girl, on the other hand, isn't so fortunate. There is no heartbeat, she's not breathing, and her skin is kind of a bluish gray color, and it's believed that the girl had drowned in the river. The girl's body is placed in a chilly back room until the authorities can be called. So when Rita, a local healer, goes to check in on the girl a bit later, she verifies that there indeed is no breath and no pulse. Then, all of a sudden, the corpse begins to breathe in and out. Rita checks for a pulse, and the girl is indeed alive, complete with a beating heart, and she opens her eyes. So I was like, what? So the question we have to ask is, was this girl dead or not? And if she was dead, what caused her to come alive? And how long was she dead for? Now, that's not the only mystery here, though. There are 3 families eager to claim the little girl. There is a wealthy couple, the Vaughns, whose daughter was kidnapped 2 years prior. There is a farming family, the Armstrongs, who is certain that the girl is their son's daughter from a secret liaison. And lastly, there's the Parsons housekeeper, Lily, who is certain that this little girl is her missing little sister. Now, there is also mystery and secrets surrounding each of these 3 families, which in itself is quite gripping. So this was a beautiful and gripping character-driven story with a phenomenal atmosphere, and you kind of felt like a fairy tale for adults, and I absolutely loved it. And this was a strong 5-star read for me. So what did you read in the month of February? Let me know in the comments. I always love hearing what other people are reading. But that about does it for me. I will talk to you all in the next video. Oh, and if you like this video, please click the like button below, as that really helps me out. And that about does it. Roger and out.